What a weekend we have in front of us, filled with some of college football's most intriguing spring games. And one such spring game that I know all of you are very excited to watch is the Oklahoma Sooners, because there are several intriguing talking points we need to discuss when it comes to the Sooners spring game. And today, we need to sit down and go through them. Before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Are you excited for Oklahoma's spring game? And let me know what you're most curious in seeing. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below, as those interactions seem small, but they are massive to content creators such as myself, and both getting picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And there is so much for us to talk about whenever we're talking about the Oklahoma spring game. Where do we want to start? And I think it's only right that we start on the defensive side of the football. Brent Venables being a defensive-minded coach, and last year, for as many things as the offense need to improve upon, it's the defense that we're looking at making the biggest strides. So, with that being said, let's talk about the Oklahoma defense and what OU fans are excited to see in the spring game. And we'll talk about the excitement first, and that's the secondary, because I think OU fans are really excited to see what this secondary is going to look like. Now, I know we can look at where that OU secondary ranked in terms of passing yards allowed, and it is not good, but it is also very difficult to be a good secondary when you cease getting any pressure on the quarterback, when you cease being able to dictate the battle at the line of scrimmage. You're asking a lot of your secondary. Luckily, there are a lot of returning faces, and because of that, I think a lot of people think that this secondary is one that has experience, it has some talent, and this is a group that should be able to grow, not only during the spring into the fall, but certainly through the season. And I'm super intrigued to see the safety position, because Key Lawrence is an individual we talk about all the time. When things are clicking for Key Lawrence, he's a dude. Now, whether he stays at safety, moves to corner, that's the awesome part about having a guy like Key Lawrence, is he has some versatility to move around. And this right here exactly highlights why I always talk about guys with versatility and why they're so key. Because let's say you feel better about someone else at safety, but you like Key Lawrence at cornerback. Well, because he has that versatility, you can do that, and vice versa. Let's say you like him at safety, you like someone else at cornerback. The versatility allows you to do that, and that's really the name of the game for this Brent Venables defense, is having that versatility. So the secondary, very interested in seeing. There are going to be some veteran players such as a Billy Bowman I can't wait to see, but also a 5-star in Peyton Bowen that I think OU fans are going to be very excited to finally get to watch. Next, we need to talk about the linebacker position, because there's going to be some new here, and this is a position group where Oklahoma fans are super excited about, because Brent Venables is a linebacker guy himself. So one would have to imagine this is a position group that's going to see a massive amount of improvement. And we also need to understand this. Whenever we start breaking down Brent Venables' defensive scheme, it is a scheme that requires a lot, and especially of those linebackers. And you had a lot of linebackers who are transitioning from the speed D to Brent Venables' defensive schematics, and it's almost completely polar opposite in approach. So the amount of learning that had to be done in identifying things, getting people set up, I can't imagine how difficult it was. And it was something that as the year was going on, these guys were still learning how to successfully play linebacker in this defense. They know how to play college football linebacker, but now you're switching the schematics up. And I'm super interested to see what another year with Venables under this defense does for some of the guys that have been on roster. I think it's safe to assume that they're going to be able to take a step up in terms of their production, in terms of their understanding of the defense, and that's something that will be big for Oklahoma. We know how much importance Brent Venables puts on the linebackers, what they're able to do, plugging holes, running free, being aggressive, and that's something I think I'm really excited to see, is the aggressive nature of this Brent Venables defense. Because when I was going back last year, the Venables defense played their best when they were playing aggressive and with confidence. It's when that confidence wavered that things started to fall apart. Moving off of the linebackers, we need to talk about the Cheetah, because the Cheetah position is one that I think OU fans are very excited about, but I don't think that that position is getting the amount of talk and the amount of press it deserves. Because though I have a lot of faith in Dasan McCullough, I think he is a very talented individual, we also need to understand how much pressure is put on the Cheetah position. It is not an easy position to just come in and digest everything that's happening. It's a lot that's asked of you. Now, luckily for Dasan McCullough, he gets there early. He can learn during the spring, he can learn during the fall, and I think that's going to be incredibly valuable experience for him, but it is something I'm interested in watching, how fast he picks up the position, because this is a position where a lot is asked of you. This is not just a plug-and-play position. This is an incredibly cerebral position where you're identifying a lot of things, and like the linebackers, you're putting things in motion. Very excited to see that. And the last position group we need to talk about on the defense is that defensive line, a position group I've been talking about for quite some time. I thought it was the biggest position of need for Oklahoma in the recruiting class, and they've done a great job in getting guys from the transfer portal. The other day, we highlighted 4 names they've gotten out the transfer portal to help them along that defensive front. And when I say defensive line, I am including edge outside linebacker guys as well as the interior guys, just so this can all be clean. And let's start on the outside and work our way in, because there's some experience that Oklahoma returns on the edges, but there are also some younger guys that are really pushing those veteran guys. And at the end of the day, that's exactly what you want. Iron sharpens iron. And you'd much rather hear in spring, hey, there are some younger guys pushing the older guys for playing time, and it's not a done deal that the older guy retains his position. Personally, I'd much rather hear that than, hey, the older guys, they're still doing their thing, and the younger guys, they need a lot more time, and it is what it is. That right there isn't as exciting as the first option, where, hey, these older guys, they're doing their thing, but the younger guys, they're impressive, and they're not taking no for an answer. They want that job. That's awesome to hear, because that's the type of culture you want to instill, where everybody is going hard in practice, trying to prove not only what they can do to the coaches, but what they can do for themselves. And that's super exciting to hear. But there are some young guys I think Oklahoma fans are very excited for, including the 5-star edge they just signed. And yes, we've talked about this before. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I think he's so gifted and he's so explosive that he could easily plug and play this year. That's something I'm interested in watching, but now let's move on to the interior. Because the interior, OU did a lot of good work in the transfer portal, and that could be massive for this Oklahoma team moving into this season. Because one thing we talked about whenever we were talking about the Oklahoma defense, if you don't have that strong interior and Brent Venables schemes, your linebackers aren't able to run free in the way that they need to, in the way that this aggressive defense has schemed for them to do so. Because Brent Venables loves aggression now. He loves getting after the quarterback. But part of the reason that they're so successful, and they were so successful at Clemson, they had dudes up at the front that could plug up holes. And if they weren't getting to the quarterback, they were plugging up holes so that the linebackers were running free, wreaking havoc. And that's the name of the game for this Brent Venables defense. Why it's so important they did the work they did in the transfer portal on that defensive line. And we're going to get an opportunity to see where it's at, which I think is very compelling. But let's flip the script and talk about offense. And we're going to start in the trenches with offense, because I talked about this not so long ago. The offensive line for Oklahoma almost always gets a little bit of a pass whenever we're talking about the position battles that Oklahoma fans can expect. And the reason is Bill Bedenbaugh. There are certain coaches in college football that, yes, we need to acknowledge that that position is one we need to watch. We need to acknowledge that there are new faces popping up on that offensive line. But at the same time, we also have to acknowledge that this is a guy in Bill Bedenbaugh who's gotten it right far more than he's gotten it wrong. And because of that, I think people can reasonably assume he will get it right. But that's not to assume it will be handed. There is still hard work in front of them, and they know this better than anybody. But the one position I'm watching on this Oklahoma offensive line is a position that, if you've been around the channel, you've heard me talk about it now for 2 seasons. And that's the center. Andrew Rame is there, and he has some upside, but it's all about bringing it all together, and this is a big year for that center position for Oklahoma. I cannot wait to see the battle we see. But the offensive line is going to set the tone, and if the offensive line continues to improve, so too will the Oklahoma offense. The next position we're going to talk about is tight end, and I'm interested in hearing from all of you on this, but if you said to me, hey Ty, what position do you think OU could go in the transfer portal and try and strengthen? I might answer tight end, and I have a lot of faith in Austin Stogner, I do. But at the same time, I just think that more tight end depth is better. Tight ends do so much for your offense, and there are some capable tight ends in the transfer portal. Now, that's not to say that Oklahoma will do it. It's just that position would not surprise me to see more depth added in for the Sooners. Because whenever we're talking about the tight end, they're mismatches. They create havoc. They are too big to put on defensive backs, they're too athletic to put on linebackers, and they can help your blocking, which is why I think they are so much of a premium whenever we're talking about importance on the offensive side of the ball. But speaking about important for the offensive side of the ball, we've got to talk about the wide receiver position. Because though OU has some talent, they also lose a lot of production, and really the only 2 guys that have experience in that room right now are Farouk and Drake Stoops. They have some guys out the transfer portal that hopefully can take a step this year, such as an LV Bunkley Shelton, a Hester, but they also got new guys out the transfer portal, such as an Andrell Anthony. And crystal balls have been inserted in the Sooners' favor for former Texas Longhorns wide receiver Brennan Thompson. And if they can add him in, that'd be a big win for that Oklahoma wide receiver room. And I've talked about this before. Though I agree there is talent there, I also don't think it's a minuscule amount of production that OU loses. Remember, we've talked about this. It's like 50% production in yards, gone, and 60-something% in receptions, gone. That is not an insignificant amount. That's something that is a significant amount, and because of that, we have got to watch what happens with that room going forward. Now, like I said, luckily, you return Farouk, you return Stoops, and I think Farouk is going to be a big part of this offense. I've said it time and time again, and I'm just interested in seeing what other wide receivers develop outside of that. Nick Anderson is a name OU fans are very excited about. Jaden Gibson, another one, and then there are some wide receivers coming during the summer that should be a massive benefit. And finally, we get to the quarterback position and the running back position. And the quarterback position, look, there's not a quarterback battle unless there is one. And what I mean when I say that is Dillon Gabriel returns. This is Dillon Gabriel's team, unless Jackson Arnold is undeniable. And at the point where he's undeniable, the best player has to play. That's just the name of the game in college football. We also have to remember Brent Venables' job is to win games now. And if Jackson Arnold puts the Sooners in a better position to win games, that's exactly where he'll go. Now, do I think that Jackson Arnold will be the starter? That's not my contention here. I think this is Dillon Gabriel's team. I started this little segment saying this is Dillon Gabriel's team, but I have seen some talk of, well, what if Jackson Arnold is better? What happens then? Well, if Jackson Arnold is better and he gives Oklahoma a better chance to be successful, well, then you play Jackson Arnold. Because Brent Venables' job is to make sure that he puts his guys in a place to be successful. That's the name of the game. Now, that being said, I think we're going to see Dillon Gabriel take another stride forward. He's been with Lebby before, but now he has a year more in Lebby's system. And not only does he understand Lebby's system better, but possibly more importantly, everybody around him understands Lebby's system better. I think the most compelling factor for OU here is that you have a backup quarterback that you have faith in a Jackson Arnold, whereas last year, that was not the case. General Booty was there, and he never even got to play. That's something I'm super interested in seeing how he continues to develop. But last season, when Dillon Gabriel went down, you pretty much well ran the Wildcat out of necessity, not out of trying to be tricky, out of necessity, and that's not where you want to be. And finally, the running back position. And this is an interesting topic because Oklahoma lost some production when Eric Gray left to the NFL, but OU fans feel confident. And why? Well, it's because they still have Marcus Major, who's a veteran who hopefully can really turn it on this year. I know y'all have the young guys you're very excited for in Barnes and in Sawchuk. Remember, one of the most important things a running back can do is understand pass protection. I have all the faith in the world that Barnes is going to be able to do so. I have all the faith in the world that Sawchuk is going to be able to do so. Marcus Major has been in college football for a long time. He's very cognizant about the importance of pass protection, and I think that gives Oklahoma a really intriguing place to jump this running back battle off of, is because you have an experienced guy in the room. I think that's a very big factor for Oklahoma. And even outside of that, you've got a lot of faith in these young guys. We saw what they did against Florida State, and I think Sawchuk is going to be a real big piece of this offense, both in terms of a traditional running back and as a receiving threat. But I can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments. Let me know what you're most interested in. Can't wait to talk post-spring game, and this evening on the live stream, y'all already know, we're going to be talking all of your biggest questions. We're going to be talking all of the things we're most excited to see, and I can't wait to see you over there, 5 o'clock Central Standard Time. That's it. See ya.